People have been handing you blame like it's your burden to bear. They've convinced you that you're responsible for their failures, their pain, their shortcomings. And for too long you've carried it without even questioning if it was ever yours to hold. But here's the truth. Blame is a weapon, not a reflection of reality. It's a tool people use to shift focus away from their own mistakes. When they don't want to face their failures, they redirect them onto you. And if you accept it without question, it becomes your truth, even when it never should have been. Think back. How many times have you apologized for something that wasn't even your fault? How many times have you taken the blame just to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to make someone else feel better? You've been carrying weight that was never meant to be yours. But today that stops. Today you put it down. You are not responsible for the wounds others refuse to heal. You are not responsible for fixing what you didn't break. And you are not responsible for carrying the weight of their choices. The next time someone tries to place their blame on your shoulders, ask yourself, is this truly mine to hold? If the answer is no, walk away. You've carried enough. Blame has a way of digging deep, of making you question yourself. It isn't just words, it's an attack on your worth, your identity, your place in the world. And that's why it hurts. When someone says, this is your fault, they aren't just shifting responsibility, they're planting doubt. They're making you wonder, did I do something wrong? Am I the problem? And once that seed is planted, it grows. It takes root in your mind and convinces you that you deserve the blame you've been given. And the worst part, it doesn't even have to be true. But when it's repeated enough, when it comes from people you trusted, when it aligns with your own self-doubt, you start to believe it. This is how blame manipulates. It takes advantage of your kindness, your willingness to self-reflect, your desire to be good. But the reality is simple. Just because someone says it's your fault doesn't mean it is. So now ask yourself, how much of the blame you've accepted is actually yours, and how much of it was just someone else's way of avoiding responsibility? It's time to separate truth from manipulation. You deserve that clarity. You need to understand something. Blame isn't about right or wrong, it's about control. People don't just blame at random, they do it because it serves them. It benefits them, and once you see this, you'll never fall for it again. Blame allows them to rewrite the story. If they fail, they don't have to face it, because now it's your fault. If they feel insecure, they don't have to deal with it, because now you're the problem. Blame is the shield they use to avoid growth, and they will keep throwing it at you as long as you're willing to catch it. Think about it. Who usually gets blamed the most? The ones who stand out. The ones who are different, the ones who challenge the status quo. If you've been blamed unfairly, it's not because you were wrong, it's because you were a threat. They couldn't control you, so they tried to weaken you. But now you see through it. Now you know that blame is not truth. It's a distraction. It's a way for others to keep you small. And the moment you stop accepting it, they lose their power over you. From this point forward, let this be your response. That's not my responsibility. Say it. Own it. Walk away from the trap. How many times have you said I'm sorry just to keep the peace? How many times have you apologized, not because you were wrong, but because it was easier than defending yourself? You've been conditioned to believe that apologizing makes you the bigger person, that taking the blame, even when it isn't yours, keeps relationships intact, that if you just absorb the guilt, everything will be okay. But let me tell you something. You don't owe anyone an apology for things that were never your fault. You don't have to apologize for setting boundaries. You don't have to apologize for choosing yourself. You don't have to apologize for refusing to carry someone else's mistakes. Enough is enough. You are not a scapegoat. You are not a dumping ground for other people's guilt. The next time someone expects you to apologize for their actions, stand firm. Look them in the eye and say, I have apologized enough. Because you have, and now it's time to move forward, without guilt, without blame, and without the weight of someone else's expectations. They will blame you because it's easier than fixing themselves. They will point fingers because taking responsibility is too uncomfortable, and if you don't see it for what it is, you will waste your life carrying blame that was never yours. Blame is a weapon. It's designed to control you, to silence you, to make you question yourself. And if you accept it, you hand them power over your mind. Look around. The most confident, successful, self-assured people don't spend their lives defending themselves against blame. Why? Because they know that blame is often nothing more than projection. The people who blame the most are the ones who refuse to face their own faults. They blame because they feel threatened. They blame because they don't want to change. They blame because it's easier to attack you than to confront their own weaknesses. So the next time someone tries to make you responsible for their mistakes, stop. Take a breath and remind yourself, this is their weapon, not my truth. Because once you recognize blame for what it really is, it loses its hold over you. Blame is not about fairness. It's not about truth. It's about power. People blame because it gives them control. If they can make you feel responsible for their failures, they can shift the weight off their own shoulders. They can escape the consequences of their actions while keeping you stuck in guilt. Blame keeps people small. It's a psychological trick. If they can make you doubt yourself, they can keep you from rising above them. They don't want to face their own reflection, so they turn the mirror on you instead. Think about this. Who benefits when you accept blame without question? Not you, not your growth. The person pointing the finger is the only one who gains from it. This is why the most successful people don't entertain blame. They understand the game. They know that blame is a tool of those who refuse to take responsibility for their own lives. They don't waste time defending themselves because they know that truth speaks louder than accusations. Now, look at your own life. How much time have you spent explaining yourself, defending yourself, feeling guilty for things you never even did? Enough. Blame only works if you believe it. The moment you refuse to engage in the power struggle, the game is over. Next time someone tries to drag you into their guilt, remember, their blame is not your truth. Their words do not define you. Their struggle is not yours to carry. And when they try to pull you down with their accusations, stand tall and say, "That's not my responsibility." Then walk away. Blame is a test, and the way you handle it determines your future. Look at the people who have made history. Did they waste their time defending themselves? Did they let the opinions of others hold them back? No. They understood that blame is nothing more than noise. Think about Oprah Winfrey. She was told she wasn't fit for television. She could have accepted that blame, internalized it, and given up, but she didn't. She knew that someone else's judgment didn't define her future. Look at Thomas Edison. He failed over 1,000 times before creating the light bulb. Imagine if he had taken the blame for every failure and given up. The world would still be in darkness. And now, look at yourself. Every time you've been blamed, you've had a choice. Believe it and shrink, or reject it and rise. The truth is, successful people don't waste time proving themselves to those who never believed in them. They don't beg for acceptance. They don't seek validation. They take action. They let their success do the talking. So the next time someone blames you, don't fight it. Don't argue. Let them talk. And then prove them wrong. Not with words, but with action. Because in the end, blame fades, but results last forever. Blame is a cycle. It keeps you stuck, running in circles, wasting energy defending yourself when you should be moving forward. But here's what they don't tell you. Blame only works if you accept it. It only traps you if you let it. Imagine you're holding a heavy chain. It wasn't yours to begin with. Someone handed it to you, and you took it without question. Over time, you got used to the weight. You forgot what it felt like to be free. But the truth is, you could have dropped it at any moment. Blame works the same way. The only reason it controls you is because you're holding on to it. But the second you let go, the game is over. You don't have to explain yourself to those who refuse to understand. You don't have to prove yourself to those who never believed in you. You don't have to carry the weight of someone else's failures. Walk away, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to break free. And the next time someone tries to place blame on you, remind yourself, this is not my burden to carry. Then turn around and leave them standing in their own mess. Because you have better places to be. Some people don't want an explanation. They don't want the truth. They don't want to understand your side. They just want to blame you. And the biggest mistake you can make, trying to explain yourself to people who have already made up their minds. You've spent too much energy justifying your actions, defending yourself, trying to get people to see your heart. But here's the harsh reality. Some people don't care about your truth. They only care about keeping their version of the story alive. So why waste your breath? Why keep explaining yourself to those who refuse to hear you? If someone is committed to misunderstanding you, no amount of explaining will change their mind. And if they truly valued you, they wouldn't need an explanation in the first place. Let them think what they want. Let them believe their own version. Your truth doesn't need their approval. From now on, stop handing out explanations like they're required. You don't owe anyone a defense for the way you live your life. And when someone demands one, smile, walk away, and let them sit with their own assumptions. Because you have nothing to prove. Blame isn't always honest. Sometimes it's a weapon. And if you don't recognize it, you'll fall right into the trap. Have you ever noticed how blame always seems to come from the same people? The ones who never take responsibility, who always have an excuse, who turn everything back on you? That's not coincidence, it's manipulation. Blame is a way to control you. If they can make you feel guilty, they can make you do what they want. They can make you apologize when you weren't wrong. They can make you stay silent when you should speak up. But here's how you break free. Start questioning the blame. Ask yourself, does this blame make sense, or is it just a way to shift responsibility? Is this about truth, or is it about making me feel small? Does this person ever take accountability, or do they always blame others? Because once you recognize blame for what it is, a tactic, not a truth, you take back your power. And from now on, whenever someone tries to guilt trip you into carrying their burden, remember this: manipulation only works if you let it, so don't. Stand your ground, refuse the guilt and walk away, because you are no longer their puppet. Most people struggle with one simple sentence: that's not my responsibility. Why? Because we've been trained to be the fixers, the helpers, the ones who hold everything together. We've been taught that saying no is selfish, that setting boundaries makes us cold, that walking away means we don't care. But let's be clear, carrying someone else's responsibility doesn't make you a better person, it just makes you exhausted. Think about how many times you've stepped in to clean up messes that weren't yours, how many times you've taken on guilt that didn't belong to you. How often you've sacrificed your own peace to keep someone else comfortable. And what did it get you? More blame, more stress, more weight on your shoulders. But today you learn the most powerful phrase you'll ever use: that's not my responsibility. When someone tries to dump their problems on you, say it. When someone expects you to fix their mistakes, say it. When someone tries to guilt trip you into carrying their burden, say it. And don't explain yourself. Don't soften it. Don't let guilt creep in. Because it's the truth. Your job is to live your life, not to carry the weight of everyone else's choices. So the next time someone tries to place blame on your shoulders, remind yourself, that's not my responsibility. And then, let it go. Because you have enough to carry already. Guilt is passed down like a chain. It's handed from one person to the next, from one generation to another. And if no one breaks it, it keeps growing. You've felt it, haven't you? The weight of expectations, the guilt for things you never did, the pressure to meet standards you never agreed to. But let's get one thing straight. You are not responsible for the choices of others. You are not responsible for the pain someone else refuses to heal. Yet, guilt has a way of making you believe otherwise. It keeps you tied to the past. It convinces you that if you just tried harder, just gave more, just sacrificed a little more of yourself, maybe, just maybe, you'd finally be enough. But here's the truth. You already are. You don't need to carry the guilt of your family. You don't need to carry the guilt of someone else's mistakes. You don't need to carry the guilt of things that were never in your control. The chain only continues if you let it. But today you make a choice, you break it, and when someone tries to hand you guilt that isn't yours to hold, you look them in the eye and say, that ends with me. Because you are not the chain. You are the one who sets yourself free. For too long, you've let other people's opinions shape your self-worth. They've told you who you are. They've placed limits on you. They've handed you labels and expected you to wear them like a name tag. And without realizing it, you believed them. But today that ends. Because the truth is, no one gets to define you except you. Not your past, not your mistakes, not the people who never believed in you. You don't have to be who they say you are. You don't have to fit into the box they built for you. You are more than their opinions. Think of all the people who were told they'd never make it. The ones who were doubted, underestimated, ignored. What did they do? They kept going. They proved the world wrong, not by arguing, not by explaining, but by rising. And now it's your turn. From this day forward, you stop letting others define you. You stop shrinking yourself to fit their expectations. You stop giving their words power over your life. Because you get to decide who you are. And the moment you own that truth, everything changes. People will say things about you. They'll twist the story. They'll spread lies. And if you're not careful, you'll start believing them. But here's what you need to understand. Their words do not define reality. Your truth is stronger than their lies. Think about it. How many times have people been wrong about you? How many times have they judged you without knowing the full story? How many times have you let their opinions make you doubt yourself? Enough. From now on, when someone speaks against you, don't fight, don't explain, just stand in your truth. Because truth doesn't need to be defended, it just needs to be lived. They can say whatever they want, but only you get to decide what you believe. And when you choose to believe in yourself, their words lose all power. Confidence isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. And it starts with one simple decision: to stop waiting for permission. Too many people sit on the sidelines of their own lives, waiting for someone to tell them they're good enough. But confidence doesn't come from approval, it comes from action. The most confident people weren't always that way. They built their confidence, step by step, choice by choice. The first time they spoke up, even when their voice shook. The first time they walked away from something that didn't serve them. The first time they trusted themselves, even when no one else did. And now it's your turn. Every time you choose to believe in yourself, your confidence grows. Every time you take action despite the fear, you become stronger. So start small. Start today. But start. Because confidence isn't given, it's earned. And the more you choose yourself, the more unstoppable you become. You don't owe anyone an explanation for the way you live your life. Yet, too many people walk through life apologizing for their choices, for their dreams, for daring to be different. But here's the truth. You don't have to explain yourself to people who were never meant to understand you. Some people will try to make you feel guilty for choosing yourself. Let them. Some will question your path, your decisions, your growth. Let them. Because at the end of the day, they don't have to live with your choices, you do. And if you spend your life trying to please everyone else, you'll wake up one day and realize you never truly lived. So stop apologizing, stop justifying, stop explaining, and start walking boldly, unapologetically, in the direction that feels right for you. Because you don't need permission to live your life. And the moment you stop seeking approval, that's when you truly begin to rise. Pain is inevitable. You will face hardship. You will experience betrayal. You will lose things you thought you couldn't live without. But here's the question: what will you do with it? Because pain only has two paths. It can either break you or it can build you. And the choice? That's yours. Some people let pain destroy them. They let it define them. They carry it like a weight, dragging it behind them in every conversation, every relationship, every decision. They become prisoners of their past. But others? They take that same pain and turn it into something powerful. They refuse to be broken. They use their struggle as fuel. They take every scar, every loss, every setback, and they build something greater from it. Think about it. Some of the most successful, inspiring people in the world weren't handed an easy life. They were broken, tested, beaten down, but they refused to stay there. You have that same choice. You can let pain make you bitter, or you can let it make you better. You can let pain make you weak, or you can let it make you unshakable. You can let pain be your excuse, or you can let it be your reason. Because pain is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your power. The only difference between those who rise and those who stay stuck? What they decide to do with their pain. So, what will you choose? People will doubt you. They will tell you that you can't do it. They will laugh at your dreams. They will expect you to fail. And that's fine, let them. Because here's the truth. Doubt is not your enemy. Doubt is your fuel. Every time someone tells you that you won't make it, you have two options. You can let it break you, or you can let it drive you. Look at the greatest success stories in history. How many of them were doubted? How many of them were told they weren't good enough, smart enough, strong enough? All of them. But they didn't waste time trying to prove people wrong with words. They proved them wrong with action. So, when someone doubts you, don't argue. Don't explain yourself. Smile, take note, and let it push you forward. Let their doubts light a fire in you. Let their disbelief be the reason you work harder. Let their underestimation be the very thing that makes you unstoppable. Because the greatest revenge is proving them wrong by succeeding. And when that day comes, when you stand on the other side of everything they said you couldn't do, you won't even need to say, "I told you so." Your success will speak for itself. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth. You don't have to waste your breath trying to explain why you deserve a seat at the table. Because in the end, words don't prove anything. Action does. Successful people don't waste time debating their potential. They don't defend their dreams to people who will never understand them. They just go out and make it happen. So the next time someone underestimates you, don't respond. Instead, work harder, show up every day, build something undeniable. Because one day, the very people who doubted you will have no choice but to recognize what you've done. And by then, you won't even care what they think, because you'll have already won. You have spent too much of your life explaining yourself, explaining why you walked away, explaining why you decided to put yourself first. But let me tell you something. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing what's best for you. People will demand answers. They will want you to justify your decisions. But their curiosity is not your obligation. You don't have to explain your growth. You don't have to explain your healing. You don't have to explain why you are no longer willing to settle for less than you deserve. Your life is yours to live. Your choices are yours to make. And anyone who truly respects you won't need an explanation. So stop giving people power over your life. Stop feeling guilty for doing what you need to do. Stop wasting energy defending yourself to people who were never meant to understand your journey. Because at the end of the day, you don't owe anyone an explanation. And when you realize that, you will finally be free. You don't have to stay the same. You don't have to be the person others expect you to be. You don't have to follow the path you were given. Because here's the truth. Your life is yours to rewrite. Too many people believe that they are stuck. They believe that because they've always been a certain way, they can never change. But that's a lie. You can start over. You can redefine yourself. You can walk away from everything that no longer serves you and build something new. And the only thing stopping you is the belief that you can't. But you can. You always could. So from this moment forward, stop living by someone else's script. Stop telling yourself the same old story. Stop believing that your past dictates your future, because it doesn't. You get to decide how this story ends. And if you're brave enough to take the pen back, you can rewrite everything. You have carried so much pain, guilt, regret, the weight of what could have been, the heaviness of things you cannot change. But at some point, you have to let it go. Because holding on will not fix it. Holding on will not rewrite the past. Holding on will not make people change. The only thing holding on does is keep you stuck. So, today, make a decision to stop looking back, to stop reliving the past, to stop giving your energy to things that no longer deserve it. Because your future is not behind you. It's ahead of you. And the moment you choose to let go, you'll finally be able to move forward. You were never meant to carry everything you've been holding on to. The guilt, the blame, the responsibility for things you didn't do. But somewhere along the way you picked it up. You took it on. You made it yours. And now it's time to put it down, because the weight you're carrying was never yours to hold. So take a breath, release it, walk away, because you are finally free. No more explaining, no more carrying unnecessary weight, no more living for anyone but yourself. It's time to rise. It's time to take your life back. And this time, you do it on your own terms.